Hi, welcome to Storytime with Dad Booker. I appreciate you being here. Hi, welcome to Storytime with Dad Booker. Appreciate you being here and hope you're looking forward to our next chapter in Ledge of Creation, Toward the Ledge. So, we'll read this now. Everybody having a good day? Today's Friday, so it's snowing and cold here. All right, we're at chapter 12 this time. We're doing Chef's Hat. My word, that was exciting, Mother Nature said. She flopped back down on her chair, unseen on her hovering cloud. The ever-present Pringle agreed. Pringle, I think this chair is missing a cushion. Do be a dear and get me one. Pringle scuttled across the cloud and opened a cupboard door that was white and fluffy like the cloud. He reappeared with a blue cushion. No, not that one. I want the green one. Pringle dropped his head. Life would be a lot easier if he was telepathic, he thought, as he went to change the cushion. Who won? Who? Woo! Reg howled. Bernard was grinning like a solicitor chasing an ambulance as his teammates and the rest of the peloton crawled over the finishing line. All except Bucks, who was still a good 30 minutes away. Oh, woo! Well done! I shall sacrifice a chicken in your name. Thanks, I think, said Bernard. Woo! Well done, Bernard, said Stan in his excitement. He performed 30 sit-ups without realizing it. A fart resonated in the air as Barry wandered into the crowd of cyclists. Almost had you, Bernard, he said, shaking his head. Almost, said Bernard with a laugh. Colin broke a fresh baguette in half. The crack was deafening and waved in triumph for Bernard. Austin readjusted his glasses and shook Bernard's hand. Interesting way to win a race. However, when you threw your bike, was it your intention to hit that marshal? In his eagerness to win, Bernard hadn't noticed that his bike had wrapped itself around a young marshal called Administrator Allard, a skinny, long-haired hippie who had a tendency to be a bit vague. The result of a little experimentation with substances frowned upon by Mother Nature that had left him a little hazy. So, when the top of the range Bianchi bicycle smashed into his lower body and groin, it took several moments for his brain to respond before he eventually muttered, "Groovy," and fell over. Horrified, Bernard looked around and spotted Administrator Allard holding his bike and singing a song to himself. Bloody hell, I'm so sorry. Allard looked up with a glazed look in his eyes. Why, man? Bernard looked confused. I threw my bike at you. It must have hurt. Oh, did you? Well, man, no problem, man. I'm okay. This thing yours? Allard pointed to the bike. Yeah, can I have it back? Allard blinked. Yeah, sure thing, man. Once everyone had finished congratulating Bernard, Barry suddenly became aware of the temperature. Bloody freezing up here. Looks like it's going to snow. Standing a few meters away and slightly out of sight, Team Captain Derek Dackerson watched as Cogs and Clocks celebrated. He felt a mixture of pride and a weird urge to eat a power gel. The barren rocky summit of the Col de Grunchucks lay open and exposed. Razor-like rock teeth formed an alien landscape that stretched across the horizon, providing a fascinating backdrop to the summit. A strong, biting wind swirled the riders, chilling their bones. It was at this point that Administrator Basil, a baldy, gangly man with a thin mustache, crawled along his top lip, swooped out of the only building on the summit. He stood there for a moment and adjusted his round glasses and his odd array of clothing. A beige suit, beige shirt, beige pants, and beige shoes. The sea of bland, however, was broken up by a bright green tie that clashed terribly. His suit fought the tie like two prominent MPs from either side of the political scale, one left-wing nutter and one right-wing lunatic. Basil appeared to be slightly unsure of himself, and he belched in excess of what could be considered normal. Looking across at the shivering teams, he gestured that they should come inside. The teams gratefully accepted his offer. After crossing a wooden drawbridge, they filed through two huge oak doors that led into a magnificent reception area. A glass chandelier swayed as the wind charged around the entrance. Huge paintings of landmarks were scattered across the walls between metal cradles that held burning torches which flickered in the wind. Ah, woo! It's a castle hotel, Reg cried out in excitement. I've always wanted to stay in a hotel castle. Mr. Basil turned to inquire what all the howling was about, but Zodiac patted him on the shoulder, shook his head, and urged him to keep going. The teams passed through a second set of huge oak doors and entered the main hall, both sets of doors closing behind them. A ferocious fire danced in the gargantuan fireplace. The heat was appreciated by everyone. Above the mantelpiece hung more paintings of landmarks, but above the smaller pictures hung the centerpiece, a huge portrait of Mother Nature that filled most of the wall. To the left of the fireplace, a temporary stage had been erected. It was here that Bernard was paraded as the stage winner, and where he accepted his winner's medal as well as a kiss from the two fine-looking female administrators. There that evening, after everyone had washed and changed, the main evening meal was served in a huge hall. Three long wooden tables, which ran almost the whole length of the hall, easily accommodated the three teams. Directly under the huge portrait of Mother Nature, and far enough away from the roasting fireplace, sat the top table, which spanned the width of the hall. Sitting at the top table were the team administrators and the team captains. Mother Nature sat in the middle with Frangalot to her left, who tried in vain to rearrange Mother Nature's cushions as she struggled to find any comfort on the hard wooden chairs. It was, of course, his fault. Waiters flitted in and out of double doors that led to the castle kitchens. One door marked in and the other marked out. For reasons known only to Administrator Basil, he was standing on a box holding a megaphone and shouting orders at everyone at once. Needless to say, it didn't work, and to make matters worse, he occasionally burped into the amplifier. Waiters spun and crashed into one another as they hurried back and forth, trying to keep up with his commands. Mother Nature, displeased with the lack of organization, glared at Basil, chilling him to his soul. Seeing her disapproval, Basil knew he had to act fast. And with the impulsive snap reactions of a railway manager, he screamed louder at a waiter who was scuttling by under his nose. Under the barrage of Basil's amplified onslaught, and the unfortunate attendant turned in shock, not looking where he was going. Was back to the double doors, the unlucky waiter stepped back towards the kitchen, about to commit the ultimate catering sin. Watching in complete horror, Colin sprang out of his seat, his chef sense going into overdrive, and shouted, "No, you never go through the out door when you're going in, just as you never go through the in door when you." And then the inevitable happened. Colin was a chef by nature, and being a chef meant that certain conventions had been bestowed upon him, or rather hammered into his head. He watched in disbelief as chaos ensued, resulting in food and plates and cutlery making their final voyage through time and space and smashing upon the stone floor. The incident had ignited the fuse of the height-restricted head chef, whose temper was fragile at the best of times, and the angry little man stormed out of the kitchen, through the outdoor, his small round face as red as a bamboo's arse. "Fucking hell!" he screamed at the two waiters who were both sprawled on the floor, covered in food and wine. "You farging idiots!" And the mad little chef waved a meat cleaver randomly and aggressively in the air. Shaking his head, the large, muscular head waiter pushed up his sleeves, walked up to the head chef, and took hold of him by his chef whites. The chef blew a gasket. "Oh, aye, what do you want?" The head chef screamed, his tall chef's hat wobbling as he struggled to contain himself. "You don't talk to my waiters using that tone," the head waiter calmly replied. Burning with an uncontrollable rage, the little chef with a big mouth turned to a deeper shade of purple and erupted. "Oh, really? And what the arg are you going to do about it?" And he swung a fist. The resulting scuffle, which was enveloped in a cloud of dust, arms and legs, momentarily appeared with a biff and a thud. Unimpressed and annoyed at such commotion from a professional kitchen, Colin Collinson rolled up his sleeves, grabbed the megaphone from Basil, who meekly protested, and ordered him down from his box. He then sidestepped the battling chef and head waiter and pushed open the correct door, that led into the kitchen. Colin was going in. Administrator Basil remained motionless and speechless as the battle outside the kitchen rumbled on. He burped and then remembered it was his hotel and tried to intervene with polite words. After his pleading entreaties of please stop fighting fell on deaf ears, Basil slid into the kitchen and turned to a softer target and remonstrated with Colin, who he felt was overstepping his authority. Basil was about to attempt to remove Colin from the kitchen when Mother Nature called out from across the great hall. Administrator Basil, please come and sit with us. It was a command, not a request, and Basil understood instantly and obeyed. I do believe your kitchen is in safe hands, Mother Nature assured him as he approached the top table. Don't you agree, Frankel? Yes, Mother Nature. I hear Mr. Collinson is a very good chef. Excellent. You see that, Administrator Basil? Everything will be fine. Basil grunted slightly, reluctantly pulling up a chair and sat down, feeling distinctly uncomfortable. But it's my hotel, he protested. Yes, it is, was all Mother Nature would say, and she gave Basil a look that suggested he would be wise to end the protest at once. Catching a pleading look from Frankel, Basil decided to remain quiet and poured himself a cup of steaming hot tea. Mother Nature then turned to the head chef and head waiter, who were still rolling around on the floor near the kitchen, and rolling her eyes, she raised her hands and separated the warring duo, leaving them levitating a couple of meters off the floor and just out of arm's reach. However, still drunk on rage, the angry little chef wasn't going to let this minor inconvenience stop him from doing his best to land a sneaky punch on the waiter's head. Even though he couldn't reach his intended target, he lashed out uncontrollably. His actions resembled an air dancer, the wacky inflatable waving tube people usually found bouncing outside car dealerships. You'll stop this nonsense a second, or there will be dire consequences, said Mother Nature. With her black eyes and bruised lips, and the head waiter and head chef suddenly found common ground. Turning to Mother Nature, they said in unison, Come again? Mother Nature appeared to grow in her chair. Do not make me repeat myself. The head waiter was a little quicker to understand the threat and quickly shut up. The head chef, on the other hand, being an unhinged lunatic, exploded, It's my parking kitchen, he roared, and I am the parking head chef at this establishment. He protested, trying to rub some blood from his white jacket. Ringo covered his eyes and edged away. There was one line on the ledge that you never crossed. You never raised your voice and swore at Mother Nature. Since the beginning of time, there had only been one administrator who had sworn at Mother Nature, and that particular honor had been bestowed upon Nutjob Nigel. Over 300 years earlier, and for reasons unknown, Nutjob Nigel had tried to overthrow Mother Nature. He had climbed the steps to her cottage on Mother Mountain, smashed in her door, and entered her holy cottage with a barrage of profanities. It was later believed that he may have been suffering from Tourette's syndrome. Mother Nature and Rango were sitting in front of a roaring fire when the door suddenly flew across the room. Once those naughty words filled her ears, she raised her left hand, clicked her fingers, and Nutjob Nigel vanished. The insurgency had lasted 8 minutes. Nutjob Nigel's disappearance led to a volley of conspiracy theories. Some had said he had been sent to the underside of the ledge, but Administrator Push refuted this as he had no record of him going through the gate. Others claimed he was sent to Earth to live as a mere mortal, but the strongest theory, popular with the conspiracy theorists of today, was that Nutjob Nigel was simply removed from existence. If this theory was proved true, Nutjob Nigel would be the only administrator to ever die on the ledge. Was Nutjob Nigel murdered? Was a popular topic of conversation in pub cellars and in darkened halls away from prying eyes and ears. It could have been an act of nature, but then again, Mother Nature could have simply sent him to live thousands of miles away on the top of a mountain in an unexplored region of the ledge. The great hall fell deathly silent, and the atmosphere filled with dread. Mother Nature narrowed her eyes, pushing her chin down into her neck. Wrangle noted the body language and knew that Grimsel Crochet, the head chef, was now in deep trouble. The torches on the wall flickered and died. The sudden darkness, but for the blazing fire, was dim and disturbing. Grimsel Crochet, you are no longer the head chef of this establishment. Fire flickered in Grimsel's brown eyes as he remained hanging in midair. His little frame began to shake with anger before he completely lost the plot, looking more like a turtle on its back as his arms and legs thrashed around. For farking's sake, over my farking dead body! Someone else running my kitchen? I don't think so. Frango sank further into his chair. Not only had Grimsel crossed the line, but he had now stepped back over it and crossed it again. Mother Nature sat up straight in her chair and let her glasses slide to the end of her nose. Frango, she whispered loudly enough so Grimsel could hear. Did I hear correctly that Administrator Crochet wants us to go over his dead body? There was a definite pause on the word dead. Yes, Mother Nature, you heard correctly, Pringle replied as he fidgeted with his napkin. I see. And did Administrator Crochet swear at me? Pringle turned his eyes away from Mother Nature. I'm afraid he did. As a fog of rage finally started to subside in Grimsel's Crochet's mind, it began to dawn on him that he was in knee deep and it had hit the fan. Mother Nature continued, Frangle, be a dear and inform Administrator Hothorns that he will be receiving a new guest. Shall I also inform Administrator Push of today's events? Said Frank. Oh, sorry, wrong voice. We'll do that again. Shall I also inform Administrator Push of today's events? Said Frango, brightening up at the term of endearment. Yes, Frango, excellent idea. Administrator Crochet is not happy with his new accommodation in the pits. We can always see what Administrator Push can do for him. Grimsel Crochet was beginning to sweat. Now let's be reasonable, he pleaded. I was only joking. Mother Nature stood up and waved her hand. I am being reasonable. Grimsel Crochet vanished in a theatrical puff of smoke that wasn't really necessary, but Mother Nature did so like the theater. Grimsel's tall white chef's hat drifted to the floor and settled by the swinging doors. It's dark in here, Frango. Do be a darling and light the torches. The mood lightened once more. Frango sloped off with a sigh. There were 30-odd torches, and some of them were very high. Despondent as ever, and wondering why Mother Nature couldn't do it, he found a box of matches and started the long, tedious process of relighting all the torches. Mother Nature gazed towards the kitchen. Please ask Colin Collinson to come forward, she said to the nearest person to the kitchen doors. As the inn door swung open, Colin was just about visible at a sink deep in thought and appeared to be singing, We put the soap in the sink and then we think, it's great to have a clean kitchen. And then we cook, never from a book. It's great to have a clean kitchen. And then we give the wife a good... Stop right there, Colin. Derek spluttered and coughed just in time. Colin turned around from the sink and looked out through the open door into the great hall. It was silent. Everyone was staring into the kitchen and primarily at him. Nice tune, Colin, Zodiac said. Tom looked startled. Oh, Colin, please come forward. Colin. Try that again. Colin, please come forward, Mother Nature said, dismissing the potentially unsavory lyrics. Colin felt the collective penetrating stare of countless pairs of eyes bearing down on him as they walked towards the outdoor. Pushed it open and stepped out into the great hall. Spotting Grimsel's tall white chef sat on the floor, he stooped down and picked it up. You are a chef, are you not? Said Mother Nature. Yes, I am, Colin replied. Our time, said Derek, whispered under his breath. And you know your way around the kitchen? Colin nodded, and Derek muttered, well, he knows his way to the fridge. And he shook with suppressed laughter. Colin, Administrator Basil would be very grateful if you could lend your expertise for one night. Basil looked astonished. Would I? Mother Nature caught his eye, and her face suggested that he would. Yes, of course. Any help would be appreciated, said Basil, swiftly averting his eyes from Mother Nature. Good, it's settled then. Tonight, Colin, you are the head chef. Colin slowly slid the white cooking crown on his head. It appeared to magically readjust to his head, loosening slightly to accommodate his ears. Colin then returned to the kitchen and felt a surge of aggression he had never felt before. Okay, I need a drink real quick. Hold on. Okay. Administrator Grimsel Crochet was a small, thin, and very angry administrator who suffered from a disease that affects some height-restricted people, namely little man syndrome. His black, curly hair had receded, all part of Mother Nature's plan to emulate the people of Earth, revealing a rather large forehead, which was now glowing red, reflecting the fires that burned within meters of him. Ah, my new guest. I have just received word of your imminent, immediate arrival, boomed the administrator Hothorns as he cracked his whip, his mouth stretching into a malevolent grin. He arches back even more than usual. After all, Grimsel was a special guest. It's not very often that we have honored guests with an administrator. They usually behave themselves. But do not fear. I have a special place for you. Hothorns pointed to the widest of the part of the canyon that was the most difficult to bridge. A fire just consumed the last wooden structure to the dismay of the tired, sweaty workers standing around the smoldering wreck. Little man syndrome, however, appears to penetrate all levels of common sense, and some people just never learn from their mistakes. Grimsel was guilty of this, and as usual, anger got the better of him. Barg you! He screamed. Undeterred by Grimsel's expletive, Administrator Hothorns ran his fingers through his thick green hair, his grin extending even wider, and cracked his whip, which wrapped itself around Grimsel's body. He then coiled the rest of his whip around Grimsel and pulled the ex-chef towards his face. Grimsel was now so close to the administrator of torture he could smell Hothorn's minty fresh breath. Grimsel tried to move his hand, but the coil was so tight they were glued to his hips. Hothorns pushed his nose into Grimsel's and grinned like a Cheshire cat. He held the pose for a further couple of seconds and gave the whip a hard tug. Grimsel span from its coils like a whirlwind, crashing along the valley floor and spinning past open fires and the astonished residents of the canyon until he finally rotated into the work area where they made the legs for the wooden bridges. Do enjoy your stay. I believe you will be here for quite some time. Hothorns boomed as he floated away to the sounds of Grimsel's cursings. Colin, this is fantastic. What is it? Said Derek, filling his face with what looked like toad in the hole. Colin folded his arms and held his head up high. Following Grimsel's self-inflicted departure, Colin, with unhelpful help from Basil, had reorganized the kitchen and restored order. Everyone had been instructed on how to use the doors properly, and Basil's megaphone had been destroyed. It's Colin's culinary delight, Colin said. He felt odd. The agitation he had felt earlier was becoming more annoying. Look, even Mother Nature appears to be enjoying it, said Reg. Well, it's bloody lovely, said Barry, with gravy smeared around his mouth. And I could do with a coffee, though. Colin ushered one of the waiters into the kitchen. He soon reappeared with a white frothing cup of hot coffee. Wow, that was quick. Colin's mouth, an angry grimace crossed his face. A clean kitchen is an efficient kitchen. Now I must go and prepare dessert. And Colin strode off with a tea towel draped over his shoulder. Hey, did you hear about the Italian chef who died? Derek announced to a table before dissolving into a fit of giggles as he struggled to deliver the punchline in his best Italian accent. He passed away. Stan laughed. Woohoo! Very good, Derek. Bloody hell, Stan, don't encourage him, said Barry with a groan. After the desserts had been served, Colin finally sat down and ate his meal. His normally laid-back persona had been pricked by something ugly. Once he had finished, he headed back into the kitchen. "Colin, where are you going?" asked Derek. Colin spun around quickly, angry that he had to answer the question. "Clearing up! A clean kitchen is a safe kitchen," he snapped. "But it's 11 o'clock and we raced in the morning," said Derek. "And?" Colin was proud, chef, and it had been instilled in him to leave the kitchen clean and tidy, ready for the next meal. However, that odd feeling was now becoming overwhelming. "It won't take long," he grunted. His mood had turned dark. Abruptly, Colin spun on his heels and plowed into the kitchen. Through the swinging inn door, where he was presented with a stack of plates, pots, and pans that almost touched the ceiling. He shuddered and thought, blink to that. He waved his head from side to side in deep thought until he eventually spotted a kitchen hand who was hopefully he might have received some help, and who had just started to tackle the first mini mountain of crockery. Colin then barked a random order and headed off towards a little office at the back of the huge kitchen, where he pulled up a little wooden chair only a chef would find comfortable and sat down. As he raised his hands to remove the sacred crown from his head, a suppressed voice from deep within the dark corners of his mind, alien in origin, screamed at him not to. Colin obliged and left the tall white hat. Colin obliged and left the tall white cursed hat on his head. He then reached into a drawer and under a small desk and found what he was looking for: the little chef's bottle of strong alcohol. There's one in every kitchen, and Colin had found Grimsell's Scotch whiskey. Leaning back and resting his chair against a wall, he put his feet up and enjoyed several shots of whiskey. Once half the bottle had been consumed, he became rather aggressive and began arguing with himself and anyone who dared go near the little office. He soon tired and began to yawn. The next morning, as the sun crept up over the horizon, its golden rays filled the hotel rooms of the castle, waking Reg, who had been sleeping on the window ledge. He had heard about the ghost of a virgin bride that visited the hotel from time to time, and how she managed this without rigor mortis knowing was a complete mystery. And he had decided to keep a keen eye on the courtyard in the hopes of engaging her in conversation. As the first spikes of the golden sun twinkled in his eyes, he howled softly. The ray inched across the floor until they stumbled upon Stan, who was doing press-ups silently on the floor next to his bed, still made from the night before. Reg pushed open the window, allowing for refreshing cold air to slither in. It was a perfect morning, and Reg was already enjoying it. From his second-floor window, he had spotted a couple of chamois that had wandered into the courtyard. Laszlo had forgotten to raise the drawbridge. A wave of satisfying peace overwhelmed him until the rays of sunshine stretched into the far corner of the room and disturbed the third member, who was now stirring in his bed. This was followed by a little fart. "Morning, Barry," Reg said without moving his head. "Good night, Kip." Barry nodded and sat up, rubbing his eyes. He then fumbled around, looking for his glasses. Farting again, Barry swung his legs out of the bed and onto the floor, where he then tripped over Stan. "Sorry, Stan, didn't see you down there," Barry said with a puzzled look. As his ever-present obsession with the weather started to wake up, he moved across the window and looked out. "Looking good out there." Stan bounced up. "Woo, sun!" And he started doing sit-ups. Having logged his weather report, the next thing on Barry's list was food. The rumbling in his stomach ignited a caveman instinct to drop everything and take on some sustenance as soon as humanly possible. There would be digestion trouble if he didn't eat at the correct time. "I need to eat now," said Barry, hopping on one leg while trying to slide the other into his lycra shorts. Down in the dining room, the roaring fire of the previous night was now a whimper of ash and smoke. But the atmosphere was electric as everyone was anticipating the long descent of the mountain. Sunlight poured through the small windows of the spectacular hall and rested upon the long wooden tables and the cyclists, bar one, who were enjoying their breakfast. "Where's Colin?" Austin asked. Derek sighed. "I'll give you one guess. He was up at 5:30, insisting that he had to get the kitchen ready. Kept telling him that he doesn't work here, but he wouldn't listen. He didn't get into bed until 2 this morning, and he'd been drinking. He even slept with a bloody chef's hat on. Oh, does he know we have a race today? Derek shook his head as a father would over a son who had disappointed him. Great breakfast, though, said Reg, tearing through a thick slice of bacon. Derek looked around the table. How's things with you, Bernard? Bernard was looking a little more serious than usual. He looked somewhat jaded, which Bernard was a concern. Things are okay, but I'm a bit tired. Austin was making strange little beeping noises on the night. Was I? Replied Austin, almost choking on a piece of sausage. Yeah, it must have been an upgrade. Everyone turned towards the kitchen as Colin burst out of the double swinging doors, swearing at a waiter. Seems the curse of the chef's hat was now affecting Colin, said Barry calmly as he sipped his coffee, happy now he had eaten. Derek put his head in his hands. It was going to be a long day. After breakfast, the teens gathered their belongings together and headed towards the start line, where they waited for the penultimate stage to begin. This was going to be a brute. The route comprised a second 70-mile mountain stretch of tarmac that started with a 10-mile twisting descent down the other side of the Col de Grunchooks, before passing through Dweller's Tunnel and continuing for 30-odd miles through the Valley of Darkness, after which the road began to twist up the Col de Shredder. On reaching the summit, the route became a fast descent down the mountain and out onto the pleasant moorland, finally ending in the fishing port of Ketchum High, which sat proudly by the Sea of Biscuits, one of the seas of the ledge. Basil stood on a box at the start line with his battered, broken megaphone in hand. Riders, are you ready? He boomed. Silence. Riders, he boomed for a second time. Are you ready? Again, he was met by a wall of silence. Dejected, Basil dropped the megaphone on the floor and whispered, Riders, are you ready? A chorus of replies ensued, the general consensus being, shut up and get on with it. Even Mother Nature was becoming restless. Just bloody well get on with it, will you? Clayton sneered impatiently. Derek looked at his watch. Bring a pot of stolen gold is Colin. Oh, he's still in the kitchen. I'll go get him, said Bernard, stepping down off his bike. Moments later, a clatter of pot and crash of pots and pans filled the air as Bernard carried a reluctant Colin over his broad shoulder and out of the kitchen and placed him on his bike at the start line. Colin was furious, his face an angry shade of red that you wouldn't find in any known color chart. His protests were met with a little sympathy. Leaving a kitchen halfway through a shift was punishable with stale garlic on the end of a stick shoved up your nether regions. He tried several times to return to his post, only for Bernard to secure him to his bike, his hands clamped on Colin's shoulder. And so, with the enthusiasm of a cat in a shower, Basil waved to the Col de Grinch flag, a purple flag bearing the image of a castle, and the race was on. Cheering administrators deafened the riders as they accelerated away from the hotel and headed down the steep pass. All right, so that's it for today. The next one, we will be doing the beginning of there's 4 chapters that deal with pirates. And it's going to start on chapter 14, the high seas. And that is some of my favorites. This is another one of my favorites, the one we just read. That has got some of the funniest. Now you'll have to tune in and hear it. So that's it. We've been reading now for how long? About half an hour. I think that's good for today. I think we can quit. Looking forward to doing this on Tuesday again. I hope you'll tell some friends, let them listen to these and hear what we're doing. Buy the book. The book is on Amazon, and I think I looked at a Walmart site and saw it even on there. So look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. Hope you'll be here. And if you can't make it, well, there's always the recordings on here. You can see it at a later time. So in the meantime, be good and be good to yourself. I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. And that's about it. Have a good one. Bye. If I can get this thing to work now, we'll stop. We're done. This thing never gives me an easy time.